Hi, I'm Angela. You know how people say money can't buy happiness? Well, my dad seems to think money is worth more than his daughter's safety. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and explain how this nightmare started. I live with my mom, Sarah, in a cozy apartment on the east side of town. It's just the two of us, and honestly, that's perfect. Mom's a nurse at County General, and even after the divorce, she's always made sure I had everything I needed. Movie nights, cooking together. She's never once tried to lock me in a house against my will. You know, normal parent stuff. Then there's my dad, Mark. He remarried 9 years ago to a woman named Jessica, and they have an 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Jessica's always treated me like I'm some sort of threat to her perfect little family, with her fake smiles and condescending tone, like I'm still 5 years old instead of 17. Lily's sweet, but only when her mom's not around. Otherwise, Jessica's trained her to act all cold and distant during my visits. You should spend more time with your sister, Dad would say, but what he really meant was, I need free childcare. At first, it was subtle. Babysitters are so expensive these days, or Lily really looks up to you. Then last week, he called with this brilliant idea. Hey, princess. What if you watch Lily after school sometimes? Jessica and I could even pay you. I have volleyball practice, Dad, and debate club. And homework. Come on, help your old man out. We're trying to save for Lily's college fund. The guilt trips only got worse. Every call, every text. Then he played his trump card. I found your old baby blanket while cleaning the attic, the pink one with the rabbits. Why don't you come over Saturday morning? We could go through your childhood stuff. Just you and me. That got me. Stupid, right? But I missed the dad who used to read me bedtime stories and take me for ice cream after ballet class. So Saturday morning, I drove over to their fancy house in the suburbs, thinking about that ratty old blanket and the memories tied to it. I should have known something was wrong when I saw Jessica's car in the driveway. Dad had said she'd be at yoga, but I walked up to the door anyway, clueless like a lamb to the slaughter. Perfect timing. Dad greeted me with a big smile. Jessica and I have an emergency meeting with our financial advisor. You can watch Lily for a few hours, right? We'll be right back. Before I could protest, he was ushering me inside. And then I heard it, the heavy click of the deadbolt sliding into place. I sprinted to the front window, just in time to see Dad and Jessica climbing into their Mercedes. Jessica turned, giving me a little wave, like we were playing some kind of game. And then they were gone, leaving me trapped. They did the same thing to Maya, came a small voice behind me. I turned to see Lily clutching a stuffed penguin, her eyes wide. Maya, I asked. Your old babysitter, she said quietly, and Katie before her, and Emma. Mommy says it saves money if they can't leave. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone. No signal. Of course, I tried the Wi-Fi. The password had been changed. The landline? Dead. When I checked the cable modem, it had been completely powered down. They thought of everything. Heart pounding, I did a sweep of the house. Every door and window was locked tight, even the sliding glass door to the backyard, which had a bar across it. That's when I noticed it, a tiny red light in the corner of the living room ceiling. Lily, I said slowly, how long have those cameras been there? She shrugged, still hugging her penguin. Daddy put them up after Maya tried to climb out the bathroom window. My mind raced as I cataloged possible escape routes. When I heard a tap on the kitchen window, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Mrs. Chen, our elderly neighbor, was standing in her garden, her expression etched with concern. She'd lived next door long before Dad married Jessica, and she'd always been kind to me during visits. Everything okay? She mouthed through the glass. Your father seemed upset. I shook my head frantically, gesturing to signal we were locked in. Mrs. Chen's eyes narrowed as she pulled out her phone. Pressing my hand against the window, I carefully traced the numbers backward. 911. Before she could dial, Jessica's car pulled into the driveway. Mrs. Chen quickly pretended to prune her roses, but I caught her subtle nod. She understood. Just forgot my laptop. Jessica chirped as she unlocked the door, her eyes darting toward the kitchen window, scanning for signs I'd tried anything. You girls having fun? We're fine, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Hey, when did you install the new security system? Something flickered across Jessica's face. Surprise, concern, before her polished mask slipped back into place. Oh, you noticed? Just keeping everyone safe, sweetie. You can never be too careful these days. The moment she left, I grabbed my phone and started recording. Lily, I said, keeping my tone casual, can you tell me again about Maya and the cameras? I want to remember all the fun things we talk about today. My little sister nodded eagerly and began recounting the same horrifying stories. I kept the phone partially hidden behind a throw pillow, its lens capturing everything while the red light of the ceiling camera blinked above us. Two could play at that game. They wanted documentation. I'd give them documentation. I just hoped Mrs. Chen was making her own calls. By the time Dad and Jessica returned that evening, I had over 2 hours of recordings. Lily had innocently shared everything: the crying babysitters, the threats about withholding pay, the times they'd been left without food for misbehaving. She didn't even realize how wrong it all was. When I finally got home, Mom was waiting for me in our apartment's parking lot, her face tight with worry. Mrs. Chen had called her immediately after contacting the police. I played the recordings for her, and her expression cycled through shock, fury, and heartbreak. I always knew Jessica was cruel, but this, she was already dialing her lawyer friend. And your father, I can't believe he'd. Her voice cracked, and I hugged her tightly. It's not your fault, Mom, I said. But we're going to stop them. The next few days were a whirlwind of police statements and legal meetings. Then Maya showed up at the station. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. But her voice was steady as she described her own experience. 6 months ago, she began, I was too scared to come forward. My parents needed the money, and they threatened to tell everyone I was a thief. Maya twisted her hands together, her words halting. But when Mrs. Chen told me about Angela, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Dad's attempts at damage control started with tearful phone calls. Princess, you're misunderstanding everything. We were just trying to teach responsibility. You're tearing this family apart. When that didn't work, he resorted to threats. If you go through with this, you'll never see Lily again. Is that what you want? But the evidence kept piling up. Mrs. Chen, suspicious after Maya's sudden departure, had installed her own security cameras. The footage caught everything: the locked doors, disabled phones, and even Jessica bragging to her friends about their foolproof money-saving system. Everything came to a head at Sunday dinner. Dad had insisted we talk things through as a family, probably hoping to guilt me into dropping the charges. Mom came with me, her lawyer friend Sandra, and Tao, though Dad didn't know that part. Let's just put this unfortunate misunderstanding behind us. Jessica cooed, serving pasta like she was auditioning for Mother of the Year. We all want what's best for the girls. You're right, I said, pulling out my phone. So let's hear what Lily thinks is best. Jessica's face went pale as I hit play. Lily's innocent voice filled the room. And then Mommy said if Maya told anyone, they'd make sure no one ever hired her again. Turn that off, Jessica shrieked, lunging for my phone. But Mom was faster. The police already have copies, she said coldly, along with Mrs. Chen's footage, Maya's statement, and testimonies from 2 other babysitters. That morning, someone new had come forward. Dad slumped in his chair, finally realizing this wasn't going away. We can work something out. Money's no object. That's your problem, Dad, I said sharply. Money was always the only object. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. The police officers who walked into our family dinner weren't a surprise, not to Mom, Sandra, or me. What did surprise us all was how many victims they'd uncovered. The investigation had revealed Dad and Jessica's money-saving system went back even further than Maya knew. Mark and Jessica Thompson, you were under arrest for child endangerment, false imprisonment, and witness intimidation, one officer stated as they read their rights. Jessica burst into tears, but Dad just stood there, looking old and defeated. Lily ran to me, burying her face in my shirt. Are they taking Mommy and Daddy away? She asked, her voice trembling. I held her close, stroking her hair. Just for a little while, sweetie. You're going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa Wilson. The weeks that followed were intense. Dad's business partners scrambled to distance themselves, horrified when the media broke the story. 3 of them even came forward, admitting Dad had bragged about his creative childcare solutions during meetings. The company Dad had spent 15 years building crumbled in just 15 days. Jessica's perfect suburban mom image shattered as more people came forward. Her yoga friends, book club, and even her neighbors shared stories about her subtle threats and manipulative hints. The community rallied around the victims instead of them. Maya received a scholarship from a local business owner inspired by her bravery. Mrs. Chin organized a support group for families affected by domestic entrapment, becoming a pillar of hope for our neighborhood. And Mom? She threw herself into advocacy, pushing for stronger laws to protect babysitters and young workers. This stops here, she said at every community meeting. No more silence. No more fear. Lily adjusted to life with her grandparents, who were horrified by what their daughter had done. They made sure she got counseling and encouraged her relationship with me. Every week, Lily and I had sister dates, just us. No locks, no cameras, no fear. As for Dad and Jessica, they took a plea deal. The evidence against them was overwhelming. Dad sent me a long letter from jail, full of regret and pleas for forgiveness, claiming he'd been blinded by greed and control. I never wrote back. Last week, I got accepted to State University with a full scholarship. My entrance essay was about standing up against abuse and driving community action. When I told Mrs. Chen she'd been my inspiration for majoring in social work, she cried. Mom asked if I was sure I wanted to work with trauma victims, given everything we'd been through. Yes, I told her, because I've seen what happens when no one does. What would you do if you discovered your parents were exploiting and imprisoning vulnerable teenagers for profit? Would you turn them in immediately, like Angela did, or try to handle it privately first? Share your thoughts in the comments below.